Woo! We are doing stuff. Look at that. I clicked all the buttons at once. Perfect. Good morning. What's up? How are y'all doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
It's good. This is not the same bat time. Same bat channel. Not bat time, though. It's Friday. I think I like the Friday situation. What do you think? Instead of Thursdays? No? Just me? Cool. For everyone hanging out, welcome to the Coffee Table Talks. You get to meet the craziest man I know, John Davis, who is my CEO. And the only reason I say he's crazy is because he puts up with me. Is really the biggest thing that makes him nuts.
It's okay. I'll be called crazy.
You'll be called crazy?
I don't mind.
Awesome. And of course, joining us as apparently always, Will McCullen, who I'm a big fan of, with PIMA Community College Center of Excellence. Bam! Nailed it. Got it done. Gosh, I wrote it down.
Awesome.
Super smart.
Hopefully it's not on a Post-it right next to your password.
You remember that story? Oh man, that one time. Yeah, that was fun. I don't want to go into that though, because he's nice. He's a nice guy. He'll know I'm talking about him, so don't do that. Anyway, so John Davis, I don't know how this happened, but yeah, I do. But it's a really long, drawn out story that'll take way more than 30 minutes. So I'm just going to say, John Davis had a concept and pitched it to me at a time in my life when I was ready to make a move and change. And, oh, good morning, Celeste. And I took it up, man. And I don't know, I just fell in love with the entire concept of the business model and everything else and the mission. And I'm on board. I'm like,
it didn't hurt that your husband was a cybersecurity expert, so that was gave him something else to talk about for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we pretty much I don't know. I feel like we always are talking something about the industry. So
yeah, it's awesome. Rachel has come a long way in the couple of years she's been working for me. So it's been a lot of fun. She's going to have her own following of with millions of followers one day. I could see that anyway. She loves this whole social media thing.
Oh, I like it. I like sharing information, right? In a way that's not like buy this thing. I'm like, let's just do general good right here, okay? I like doing the general information sharing part, and if you need something at the end, we can do that.
Well, it makes it real, right? It gets out of the. It's like when you go to the supermarket and you're talking cashier and you say, "Hi, how are you doing?" And they kind of startle.
Right.
It breaks the glass.
Yeah, pretty much. So I grabbed John because Will and I and Laura were talking last week, and John had some questions for Will that he wanted to ask that weren't necessarily on topic, and like a very nice man, he waited. And I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm throwing you around the coffee table, and I'm going to drink coffee, and you're going to talk. How about that?
Yeah, I was glad to meet you, Will. It's
pleasure.
I enjoyed watching last week's coffee talk with you, and I can tell that you definitely are drinking the Kool-Aid on the whole topic. So it's the Kool-Aid. There's the Kool-Aid. We were talking about the cyber warfare range and what you're standing up there, and before the call we were talking. We've been having this conversation for 20 minutes now, so let everybody else catch up. But there's some great information out there. I love the website on the cyber warfare range, and then the links to the jobs and all that. That's super valuable. I've never seen that many security jobs in one place on that CWR main forum, which Rachel can post in the chat for anybody to see. That's super valuable. The thing I was enjoying talking about a few minutes ago was what's going on right now in the space and how everybody's in sort of a maintenance mode, and not actively buying new platforms on a grand scale like they were pre-COVID. And it's a great time to expand. And there's a word on the cyber warfare range called upskill, right? I like that word, upskill your people. And so what you're doing with the standing up the cyber warfare range and the SOC and everything else that you're working on is a great upskill, is the appropriate word for it. But also leveraging the technology you already have. So being able to get folks into an environment like what you're building there, even if it's virtual, right? Which it will be, and being able to get hands-on and have other people to lean on who know more about the platforms they already have. So I think that's the most important thing from a cybersecurity standpoint that's coming from all of this. The COVID thing is being able to make sure that you're leveraging the infrastructure you've already made an investment with. And so I think that's sort of the word of the day in cybersecurity. At least I feel it is that the getting people to upskill, and that's the word of the day. but to have resources like what you're doing. So I would be very curious to know what technologies you're going to put in there, and what tools you're going to use, and how do you figure that out? How do you know whether you're using Okta or Carbon Black or CrowdStrike, or what platforms are you bringing? All vendors, or are you just going to cherry pick some and start to bring those technologies in?
Well, that's a very interesting question. So what we're doing, right? We have PIMA Community College, the Arizona Cyber Warfare Range, which is a different group, and then also some really strong connections with Tech Data. And here in Tucson, we have IBM, we have Raytheon, and so what happened is that we brought a whole bunch of businesses together and said, instead of going by what we think is good, what do you need to be able to hire? And some of the big things that we got was hands-on, and also being able to develop the soft skills. And so the whole concept is, let's build an environment that is hands-on for students, that is not just a regurgitation of knowledge, but that is actually working with the tools, so that students, when they're done, you can take them out and say, okay, go work on this, right? So our course is now including things like project management, so that students who have never seen a project before can actually,
Right.
come out part of it. We're including law and ethics and elements like that. So to answer your question, when you come to that, what we're having to focus on more are the concepts and really being able to start to understand. Because remember, we've got folks that are coming out from ground zero.
Right.
And when you talk about getting into specific vendors, that doesn't really matter as much. Where we're at right now is trying to get the concepts down. Yeah. And we're in IT, right? Every company has to take the very same concept and give it a different name. That the problem of when you let marketing too near technology, right? It's confusing.
Right.
But for us, it's more important to teach the elements of the different layers of abstraction. That's the crazy thing about this industry, right? Because you can work on the physical boxes. Okay, now you have virtual machines. Well, that's a software abstraction of a real thing. And then you take that and you start to put it into cloud areas, and that becomes a further abstraction. So we've got layers of abstraction upon layers of abstraction. So then we also are an education institution. So it depends on what we can afford. A lot of these companies, it's just flat out too expensive. So we are going to have a VM structure inside for a lot of our production stuff. Production stuff being some of the labs that we can use for our classes and things of that sort. And students, VMware has a good student support to where they can do their licenses for that year or whatever along those lines. But then we lean very heavily on open source. So we're working with Overt and building those types of clusters. And then seeing what we can get in with different academies to some degree. But a lot of that depends upon, what we can afford. When you look at something like Splunk.
Yeah, maybe that's an area that we might be able to help provide some value anyways. I think we could probably get a lot of these high-end platforms to basically do a free license suite for you. So because yeah, that's something that I would love to try and work on that. I mean, I can't speak for them, but yeah, Buddy Rosenberg, you're spot on, man. That's exactly what I'm talking about is leveraging the existing infrastructure. So the reason why I'm asking about this, Will, is because integration, right, and implementation is one thing, but integration and getting your platforms to automate and to work the way that they're supposed to is a whole different conversation. It's a critical piece of the cybersecurity evolution that's happening right now, and it's a hole, right? There's a big hole right there that they might have the wheels on, but the engine's not fully mounted, right? So I think that's and it's a great time with the upskill, right? Which is what I'm really getting at is not just the entry level folks that are fresh, the fresh talent that you're talking about, but also people that are a little further down the chain and already have experience being able to provide value for them and have an environment with Palo, with Carbon Black, SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, all of those, not just bleeding edge, but even if it's Symantec or McAfee or whatever it is, but being able to make it work the way it's supposed to with the Palo box, with the CASB, privileged access management, right? You get into it's not just threat hunting and SOC monitoring is all I'm saying. There's a lot more that goes into integration with identity management, with privileged access management, with application security, and getting into that. That's a whole nother can of worms when you get into sec DevOps, right? And that's a chicken or the egg problem, but it depends on how much development you're doing.
Well, now you're getting to another aspect of what we're trying to create. So we're a community college. We've got 2 years to work with students to get them up on the basics. Mm-hmm. But the other part that is the beauty of the Arizona Cyber Warfare Range is, and it also has close relationships with Tech Data, which have their own area of training and things like that. But higher education has to shift. It has to change from just being that one core element to working with business and helping to provide a space for workforce and to have different types of certificates that can function well with workforce. And if we can do this right, then the Cyber Warfare Range is open to the community. Anybody can down learn how to hack. It's not a PIMA student thing, right? So if we can create a nexus area in Tucson is what we're working mainly here. And if we can do this virtually as well, then we'll have a space where IT professionals will be coming to do that upskill that will be to refresh, or in the Cyber Warfare Range, just explore, right? Because that's a safe area to hack. How many of them are out there? Right. And the real kick is that if we can do that where students can hang out, students can get hired, they can get mentored, they can get immediately, if they are working side by side with professionals, the professionals can actually be helped by helping students. You've ever tried to teach a topic, then you learn how much you learn about that topic that you never knew before, right?
Right.
So if we can create that dynamic, that nexus for student and employer, that needs to be duplicated across this nation in a major way.
Absolutely, it's a great point. I'm excited about it. I'm not even involved with it. I think it's awesome. The fun part of it, man, is you're kind of sitting in the driver's seat, right? You got the whole world as your oyster, kind of a thing, and it's a creativity. Well, I mean, it's from a technical standpoint, you got some agility here, right? And even if it's kind of stalled out a little bit because of COVID, everybody sees the business case, the use case. From a student perspective, right? Like the jobs that I was talking about that are on this cyber warfare range, right? The azcwr.org website.
The link is in the chat. You're good.
Yeah, it's awesome. The main forum has a ton of cybersecurity jobs. I mean, that should be blasted out to the whole world. Entry level, blue team, red team. Right, the being able to break it down for entry level folks that are just coming into the industry, that is gold right there. That's super, right. And they're current within the last week or so. So that's pretty hot. I know what I'm talking about is more blue team and infrastructure, even, right? Is not so much on the threat hunting side, which is the hacking piece of it. But I'm a big fan of the defense side because even though we do sell penetration testing and things like that, but
needed desperately.
Yeah, and there's so many things that can be done that folks aren't doing. I think that's really, they don't have, like you said, there is no real world place where they can go and test it and kick it and without just standing it up in a virtual environment, but it's limited. It's not going to be as real world example, right, as what you guys have there. So
in Russia, if you're in Russia, you go to they have hacker cafes, right, where you can have anyone as long as it's not Russia. Well, what a great training ground, right? So the other aspect,
wrong about that, but yeah.
Well, the other aspect that comes into play with this is that, PIMA, we're trying to help students, we're trying to help change lives for the better, right? That's our main focus here in town. But and I think community colleges are in a great position for this if we can just find some good models to do and find out a way to get some good industry backing to where they see it as an investment,
right?
To where the bigger mission is to help save this nation, because how much is trying to come against us. Just on the FBI spiel and Homeland Security has bubbled up the aspects of the attacks for focusing on hospitals and healthcare with ransomware.
Yeah, and lives lost changes the game.
Well, when you think about if you have ransomware embedded to where it can be a trigger to use, and there's nation states, I'll just leave it at that all know are really big on bringing down this country. What a better way to do that than to where you can disrupt industry, disrupt everything, because here in the States, we actually care about rights and laws and stuff like that. So when there are data breaches, it costs heavily. Well, what a better way to bring down a good portion of a country than to trigger all those to where folks have to pay and industries go under, right? So if we don't circumvent the sloppy IT, then we've got to make a change. We have to get people to where they not only know how to set up the tools, but they know if they're effective. Yeah, and that's the whole thing with the cyber range, right? You don't train cops with squirt guns. The same thing doesn't work in cyber. So you need to be able to, if you're going to defend, you have to at least do a little bit of attacking so you have an understanding of the mindset and how it comes. Otherwise, you can get all the best products in the world, but if you don't understand the concepts, you're toast.
So is it going to be a pay to play, or is it all free?
The cyber breach is all free.
All free. So I mean, if that can get to somebody to where they can go and what, you know, where I would love to help with our 400 plus partners we have, right? I mean, I'm partnered with everybody with a heartbeat, basically. You know, all the every name. It's easier to tell you who we're not partnered with. If we can help get some of those technologies in there so that people can actually get their hands on them and use them in a real world environment, that would be awesome. That would be super cool.
I would love that. And
okay.
I would love another Don Quixote, right? All these different companies do have higher ed programs, you know, to where they sell their software essentially to higher ed. And Microsoft has made a ton of money that way, right? Mm-hmm. So they discount it, but it's a business. That is getting harder and harder with higher ed these days. Just watch the news. I mean, universities, because they haven't really kept a good eye or pulse on workforce. What we need to do is to be able to unite some of those aspects of industry with higher education so they see it as an investment that means something, right?
Well, leveraging the security stack, right? I mean, what we're talking about is leveraging the security stack. So I mean, it's either you're an effective, you know, as far as CISOs go. You know, this is my top-down view of the world. Is that I'm looking at it from a top-down and talking to CISOs from everywhere, right? I mean, in the last 2 weeks, it's anyway. We're having lots of conversation. There's not a ton of action happening because everybody's in this maintenance mode, but it opens up good conversation, right? As far as what the sprawl is and what the security stack is not effectively being leveraged. There's a lot of hopscotch going on right now with you know, I've talked to probably a half dozen CISOs from, you know, 25, 35,000 employee plus companies who have rolled up to 4 or 5 different bosses in the last like 2 years, right? So that nobody knows where to put them anymore. You know, if they start off, they can't answer to the CIO because that's a conflict, and then now we're going to put them under risk, and now we're going to put them under legal. And wait a minute, they spend too much money, we're going to put them under the CFO so that somebody can hold the purse string and at least say, why are you spending money like this? So anyway, that's some of the headaches that I've been struggling with. Anyway, is these guys are losing team members. There's layoffs happening. They're having to cut some of their team loose, and so it's been a really interesting. There's the word for it. Year. I've got an idea. I would love to get your feedback on. Will, what about? And this is kind of out of left field, right? I'm doing a side left here. What about multi-factor authentication, 2-factor authentication? For everything, all insurance, all healthcare, all legal, all everything. What if we roll that out as a policy, as a country, as a world, and we go to 2-factor authentication? So if you don't have my cell phone, you're not getting in to anything. And then PII is worthless.
Well, I wouldn't go that far because there's different ways of harvesting that from the inside, right? Even once you get authenticated, there's nice ways to harvest.
Right.
But yeah, 2-factor authentication is very important. Now we're getting into the areas of like NIST and compliance. But the biggest hurdle in my mind, okay, so this is my opinion, right?
Sure. We're just throwing stuff against the wall here.
The biggest difficulty in my mind is changing the culture.
Absolutely.
this is huge in.
We're talking regulatory changes too, big time, to push two-factor out to make it a standard for everybody.
Well, this is painfully aware in the education arena, right? Because we're academia. In academia, you share everything, right? It's sharing knowledge. It's being free and open with thoughts and ideas, and doing that. And so when you start talking the basics of cybersecurity, it's segment, separate, trust but verify, zero trust. We start with a whole concept of block until we need to allow, right? And how do you make that cultural mind shift at the CEO level for non-IT stuff?
And the pain in the butt that two-factor authentication is, I mean, is it worth it to be? And I use the word bulletproof loosely, right? So, but compared to where you're at today, let's say compared to where you're at today, if you have to get a code, and everybody's used the Google Authenticate, right? Anytime you log into Google, it's literally pick one of these 3 numbers, click yes, and you're on. It's not like it's that big of a headache. But if and it's not being used for healthcare, it's not being used for insurance, it's not being used for my online banking, it's not being globally accepted or pushed as a standard. And what I'm talking about is if we make that shift fully, where everything you do has to be authenticated by your cell phone, via your cell phone. I know, yes, they can, but my point is it's a light speed jump from where we're at today. It would cut the legs out on the criminal industries that are now making billions, trillions of dollars off of this, right? It would cut the legs out, and it's kind of scary to me, because when you cut the legs out on the criminal industry, they find another way, right? It's a shift. They shift their focus, and because they're going to make money, there's other ways to do it. So I think if we did that and we pushed that globally, at least nationally, that would be a major change, and ultimately maybe putting me out of business, right? I mean, I'm talking about a change that would. Let's not go too far, but bigger mouse trap, right?
No, but multi-factor, is great, but it's locking the door. If everybody locked the door, crime goes down. But are there other ways in? Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not even doing the simple stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right now, we just closed the door. We didn't even lock it. Might as well put a welcome in sign on it. It's like open 24 hours.
Come on in, have a cup of coffee.
There's a party in here. I got bank numbers and some personal information I'd love to share with you. Right? Go to all of your apps, guys, and turn it on. A lot of them have the option already. It's in there. Do it. You should do it.
Yeah. Social engineering is the human factor is always the biggest weakness. Buddy Rosenberg's just talking about social engineering anyway, and you can't patch stupid. I love that so much. That was like the first shirt I ever made for my company was SecureNation, because on the back said, because you can't patch stupid. But my employees said that was a little too abrasive, so I had to step back from that.
Well, the attitude is there, right? And have fun with it. The clock is going. Tick tock, tick tock, tick.
Right.
Oh, boom.
I like trying to think of ways that we could revolutionize the way it's done. I mean, just simple things. The 2-factor is just one. Just throwing one thing out there, but there's other things that we can do. But it has to be a global policy push, right? It can't just be the people who are getting scrutinized the most. It has to be just, this is it, and it's the culture won't change unless you force it. It's not going to change by itself. It's not like, obviously now we've seen these massive data breaches and massive fines and it's helped a little bit. I mean, I'm talking with some of these Fortune 100 companies that have had major breaches and lost their ass, and they're still struggling with the culture change internally. It's not like and I think it was Chris Roberts. Let's give him a plug anyway. He was talking about on LinkedIn the other day. He was talking about how the cost of the breach of an airline. I won't throw anybody specific under the bus, but that the cost of the toilet paper and the sewage processing and all that cost them more than remediating their data breach of 80 million records or whatever it was. And it was hilarious. But it's so true. And that's really the problem, is that until you and bigger, is it a stick or a carrot, right? That's ultimately what we're trying to figure out is it a bigger stick or a bigger carrot that we need to motivate these companies into the culture change that you're talking about, right? From a top-down perspective all the way up to the CEO.
Right.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I usually challenge anyone that has that outlook, right? That we need a culture change, or they want to complain about the culture within their own organization or within their own circle of friends. What did you do today to make that better? I sat down with my dad and went through his cell phone and turned on all of it. So it was already done for him. So it was easy, right? Big, fat, easy button, smash. I did the same thing for my mom. I showed them short little tutorials about why it was so important that we lock down the iPads, because my mom watches my kids and she just, while she's fixing them lunch or dinner or whatever, she gives them an iPad to sit in front of so that, they don't go causing a muck. But why we need to lock the iPad down and, net nanny that. So that she understands why I'm doing the things that she thinks are crazy, right? Mom, it's not crazy. Okay. This is why. Because there are some really seriously dangerous people out there that really want to take advantage of those that make it easy, right? Mm-hmm. The low-hanging fruit. And it's you and your family and your kids and your neighbors and everybody else. They're the low-hanging fruit, the ones that you don't go talk to. So go talk to them. At least one person a day, just one person. I don't care if it's somebody in the grocery store line, man. Turn around and be like, hey, you got a multi-factor on whatever, you send it in Starbucks. They got multi-factor on their app. Turn it on.
It's the 3 seconds it takes, Rachel. They don't want to spend the 3 seconds it takes every time they access that, and that's really the problem. Is that's the global culture shift that needs to happen. Is that we need to go ahead and make it a standard that we have to give up the 3 seconds. We're since the smartphone came out and way before that, we've all needed instant gratification, right? And the younger the age group, the more they demand instant gratification.
A topic for another day, Rachel, which is why have we made technology so complex that we have to go and so that grandma and grandpa don't know that there's a whole bunch of switches and knobs that they have to make themselves safe. That's on the security.
It's always an afterthought. It's always an afterthought. If they had put the thought of security into the app or whatever it is that you're using, if security was the first priority on their minds whenever they were making that sort of platform accessible to their customers, it would have been the landing page. Okay?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's an afterthought. You got to go through 3 different menus to go find it.
It's security,
the first thing.
Security doesn't make money. Features make money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
You're right.
So back to what I was talking about earlier is that everybody gets sold on these high-end, bleeding edge, cutting edge solutions, and then there's especially the average CISO tenure is 2 years. They spend 90% of the money that they're going to spend in the first 12 months. It's usually and they're ripping everything, and putting all this new stuff in, and then they have this huge sprawl, right, of security stack, and now we have everybody's kind of slowed down. Wait a minute, stop buying new stuff, and so now we need to implement the stuff that we've bought and so this security a hole in the industry for any type of audit that looks at maybe for an individual platform to see what it's connected to, but as far as like an overview of everything, that's sort of a hole in the industry that I've seen. And when somebody does do an audit, an assessment of that, they're usually trying to sell a big giant stack of hours, right? It's a way to get you on the 1,000 hour. The way to get you to pay 5 times the price of the platform you bought is to let us come implement it properly for you. And so that's been a problem. Anyway, there's been 11.7 billion records breached, according to privacyrights.org. There's only 7 billion people in the world.
Do the math.
And somehow I don't think that most of those records were children. So that means that all of our PII is already out there. There's nobody that's not out there. I mean, I think pretty much I think someone should receive a huge award from the government if they can't find any of their PII online.
Well, guys, we're gonna have to close up here. I think we talked about some really exciting topics today. It seems everybody was chatty, so thank you guys for sitting around and participating in the chat and discussion and meeting my fearless leader.
I'm going to come to Will's house. I want to hang out in the Hobbit hole. So that's awesome. Awesome. I will have a green screen by the time I do another one of these.
I love it so much.
Super cool.
If you guys have any questions or need any resources, feel free to reach out. I'll send you links all day. I don't care.
Thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate it. I know a lot of you folks. I've been watching the text scroll by, so that was pretty cool. Thanks, Will. Nice to meet you.
Y'all have a great weekend and a happy Friday.
And Will, we will definitely try and get some of the high-end tech partners we have to give you free software.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we're on that. So that'd be super cool. So
definitely.
Cool.
We'll see you all again next week for the audience.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween.